idea for all this really came from a dream?
Yes, it did.
Good evening and welcome to Nox Mente. Tonight's guest is Freeman Fly. Freeman began his career discussing Illuminati social engineering through corporations and celebrity mind control. With predictions of 9/11 and the 10/13 bank crash and the Obama birth conspiracy, no one could deny Freeman's insight of the esoteric nature in world politics and Hollywood. Opening with an in-depth exploration of Illuminati corporate logos and America's goddess Columbia, Freeman went on to become an award-winning television producer with the first ever documentary on HAARP, and he was the first to televise a documentary on chemtrails. Freeman has been a pioneer in talk radio and continues to do so with the Free Zone. Freeman, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Jay.
Hey.
This is a grand pleasure. You're legendary, Freeman.
Thank you.
You really have paved some ground and kept the bar very high. And I'm completely honored to have you in here for Nox Mente especially. We need to have you for the obelisk, but Nox Mente especially, so we can get into some of your early private life and dive into these themes and what you think is the difference between all these states of consciousness and where it's all going.
Yeah, my life is surreal enough to be a walking lucid dream.
It probably is.
It is.
I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure it yeah.
How is it where you are right now? Is it super hot?
It's always beautiful in Greenville. It's crazy to me. I suppose it's like 97 out there at times, but I don't really notice that. It's just, I love this. I think it's like a perfect human habitat zone. I've lived in every state in the United States. So
that's more than me. I've had 100 moves in my life, but not several within states.
All right. I lived in a vehicle for 10 years. So
oh yes, I have a Vardo still. Some of us just have that in us, Freeman.
Yeah, that was me. When I was a kid, I packed up that little satchel on a stick, I swear to God, with a chicken leg in there, and I went walking, and yes. Nothing was going to stop me. My parents had to search for hours. I had walked miles. And I was just on my way. I didn't have a clue.
Oh, wow. Yeah, same here. I think my first little trek out, I was 6, trying to get to my grandmother's in the town over.
Yeah.
It's this thing. Some of us just have it. It's nice to encounter others. I guess I didn't realize you had that. I know you've been a lot of places though.
Yeah. It started as soon as high school ended. I became a beach bum. I just lived on the beach in my Camaro.
Ooh, now there we go.
I traded the Camaro in for a van, and 7 people moved in my van with me. There were 3 of us in the Camaro at one point with a surfboard. So you used to fight to sleep in the passenger seat. But
it's like the queen bed of the car, right?
Right.
Exactly. I think that's the only one with nothing, because they had a surfboard in the back seat. So, and that big old hump for the. Anyway, Camaros are not made for sleeping. So I traded that in for a van, and from that moment I was hooked. But I guess I've always been that, even if we're going to talk about like dreaming and sleeping, it was always me in my little world under my sheets. I always slept under the sheets with my animals, my stuffed animals and my poodles.
Yes.
And had my own little world in there. And I think that just carried forth like this little safety zone that I could always carry around with me, no matter if I was in a van or. Yes. That's very disturbing for a lot of people, to have the carpet yanked out from underneath. You don't know where you're going to sleep, what you're going to eat, what you're going to do. And I had a lot of travelers panic because I bring people with me that have never traveled anywhere before and watch them freak out.
It's definitely those of us that understand that and know that way are just that way. And I've always thought I've always had the sheets has definitely been a thing for me, and forts in the woods when I was little and all that. But for me, it's like this bigger idea. We're transient here anyway. And so it just always seemed to extend to my apparent reality somehow, where this is all kind of a transient experience, whether it's in the mind or physical, or interdimensional, wherever it is. It's something bigger and deeper.
Yeah. And
You know what? I Since you already took us there, let's go to little Freeman Fly.
Oh, now you're in
Back.
trouble.
Yeah, let's go back to the beginning. What are the first memories, the first things that come to you in this lifetime that stick out? And this can include, and it's lovely if it does, things in pop culture that stick out, as well as your relationship with the world around you, whether it be nature or the concrete jungle.
I'll give you the first sentence to my autobiography that I've not written a bunch of times. And that is that I was born in the middle of the summer of love. It was the beginning of the space age. And my very first memory is sitting in this basket while the adults around me are bugging out because man is landing on the moon. I was 2 years old. And I don't know that I remember that, but I remember remembering that. So it's one of those things. So that was really my first memory. I woke up into the space age, literally while they were landing on the moon.
That's significant.
Yeah.
And it certainly has set the precedent for the path you've traveled.
For everything. And everything in my life turned out to be a part of the story. My family, I didn't discover who they were till I was in college. So young me, I guess I was a little genius kid. I was always put into those advanced classes. I had extraterrestrial thoughts at all times. I wanted to be a spaceman. When they asked me what I wanted to be in school, I'd say a spaceman. And they'd say, "Oh, an astronaut." And I'm like, "No, not an astronaut. That's boring. You just go up, come back. Who wants to do that? I want to be a spaceman, And I had a vast knowledge of paranormal stuff. Like I guess my reading was like Encyclopedia Brown, the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, and UFOs and Bigfoot and Atlantis and all of those kind of things. Like I thought Akhenaten was a common word. I thought everybody knew. Anyway, so I was really into that world deeply, like I had what I believe are cover memories at times. Like once when I was a little kid and took the trash out, I suddenly was a dancing bear. I had a full tuxedo on and this big bear head, and I was just dancing out there for a while. It felt like hours. And I went back inside and I didn't know what had happened. And later in UFOlogy and studying that kind of stuff, I think, that was some sort of weird cover memory. It was the weirdest thing because it felt like so much time had passed. And I was just taking the trash out, but I was this dancing bear for like a while. But I also had dreams or memories of floating out of the house. So a lot of that going on in my reality. And then to later discover, like when I'm in college, that my dad was chasing flying saucers for Project Blue Book, was this Freemason, was building nukes when I was born. All this weird correlation. I learned of all of the stuff that I learned, and then I learned that my family was in it. You know what I mean? It was like the other way around. But yeah, I don't know. I was a little genius shy kid. I didn't speak till 7th grade. like except for like true friends at home, but in school, hell no, I didn't speak at all. Like speaking to me is something I'm not very comfortable with, and so it's ironic that this became my job, or my life. I guess it's not really a job; it's my life. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely your life, and you're good at it.
You just
Wh-
said it was your
so-
job. What are you talking about?
yeah. I quit my job so long ago. But
So when you say you didn't meet your parents until later, what does that mean actually? Is that literal
no, I mean I didn't know
about them?
about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like here my dad held all these secrets. Here I've been reading all this stuff, studying UFOs and all the weird things, and it wasn't until I discovered Freemasonry in college. I had a friend who was like Aleister Crowley, and he introduced me to the ideas of magic and the concept of esoterica and stuff. And I was looking through his books. He had this massive magic library. Now, this is back before the World Wide Web, you know, before anyone knew any of this stuff. Like, we didn't know any of this stuff, and no one knew what Crowley did or what those, you know what I mean? Like, it's a completely different world now. Now you talk about it and everybody thinks they know.
Yeah,
But
not everything, information's everywhere now. Back then, we're the same generations. Back
right.
then, it was worked for.
She does that sometimes. Just
Did I go out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, weird. Yeah, back then you actually had to work for the information. You had to find it and then put things together the hard way. It's so much easier now. It's hard to even describe that to modern generations.
It really is. You know, library. You know,
Yeah, what's reading? I get it all from video now.
Right. Yeah. But so when I was shown secret societies in Freemasonry specifically, I recognized the symbols that I was seeing, and then I realized that my dad was Mason. Well, my friend did, really. I was like, wait, you know, that's I used to play Battlestar Galactica. I was always Apollo. And, you know, Battlestar Galactica actually is kind of the Mormon creation myth of genetically modifying the beings on Earth to become the different races on planet Earth. And it was written, you know, by the Mormons, who are extraterrestrial Freemasons. And I used to wear my dad's insignia while playing Battlestar Galactica as a kid. And so I instantly recognized the compass and square G logo and said, you know, that's in my dad's drawer. And my friend's like, well, your dad's Mason. And I'm like, no way, you know, I didn't believe it. But then I go home and I ask Dad about it, start talking about it. And he tells me, well, not only that, but I used to chase flying saucers for the government. I worked for Hynek, and I was stationed on the South Sea Island tracking flying saucers. Where I had 4 radar dishes. And I'm like, slow down, wait a minute. What? Hold on. My whole life, I've been in this weird world, and not once did he ever talk to me about any of it. Like, until I discovered it myself.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Have
well,
you seen?
it was.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Jared. Go on.
No, I was going to ask if you'd seen The Expanse on. I guess it was on Sci-Fi.
What's really weird about me, and I don't remember movies at all. I don't remember my life, honestly. A lot of the details, and people have to tell me stories about myself, and I generally don't even believe them. So I can imagine that most people don't believe me, because when I hear stories about myself, I'm like, I didn't do that, but I did. I know I did. But I have this weird, I guess it's living in the experience, like you were saying, where I just get so submerged. Like, I saw Star Wars 14 times in the theater.
I think I saw it that many times too.
I enjoyed it every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And what really has always happened is I come out of the movie, my friends are quoting lines, and I have no idea what they're talking about. None, not even an inkling, you know? And it's a really bizarre thing. So anyway, you can bring up any movie and I'll just tell you, yeah, I've seen it, but that doesn't mean I'll.
It's a 3-season TV show. There were 2 seasons around Sci-Fi, got canceled. Amazon did a season. Anyway, my point was that one of the main subplots of the first season were that this one group was building a giant spaceship for the Mormons, so they could go out and seed space. It was kind of interesting.
Okay, I remember that. And they
Yeah.
steal it.
The big statue of well, I can't remember the name of the thing now.
Joseph Smith. Or
No,
Maroney.
Maroney, right? The Maroney statue with
Yes.
the sword on the front. All
Yeah.
right, I'll shut
Yeah,
up.
it's actually a really good. It's really good.
It's
Yeah, I've
fantastic.
seen it actually. I just
Yeah.
you got to give me more details.
The
for me to
details.
Yeah,
remember.
no worries. It's just a great show.
Yeah, no.
Did you so earlier, let's ruminate back on the early stuff still. So when first of all, where did you grow up?
Orlando, Florida.
Oh, you're
I
right
grew
over
up at
there.
the home of the rat.
Yes.
I was one of the very first people to walk into Epcot.
Oh wow.
And I pretty much grew up at Disney. My mom knew Walt. And I mean, she'd met him. She worked for him. They helped actually acquire the land with Disney got for Disney World. So anyway, my family was all wrapped up in Disney. I have these Mouseketeer certificates that my mom had and some other Mickey postcards that Walt gave her. And so there's one with my name on it. And for the longest time, I thought I might have been a Mouseketeer because my mom, she would bring me into things like the Bozo show. I was auditioned for that.
Yes.
So I had these weird memories of being through that kind of stuff. And so, when I saw my name on the Mouseketeer certificate, I thought I had been one. And yeah.
Well, they did have, they had that club and they would have different club meetings and all that. It was the whole thing's interesting, as you well know. What about at this period, and that is very interesting, the Disney thing, because, I mean, I think anyone that listens to the show, and certainly yours, understands that that's significant. Did you have siblings?
Yeah, I have an older sister.
So it's the two of you. Excellent.
I remember when she finally became my sister instead of me being her brother. I finally got more popular than her in school.
No. That's funny. Oh yeah, my brother and I actually haven't talked to my brother in years. We're just so different. Okay, and then you're in Florida. What was your relationship with the natural world? And in particular, was there anything special about the water with you?
Yeah, you couldn't keep me out of it. That's for sure. So first and second grade, I was moved up to North Dakota to live in the 10-foot snow drifts while Dad built nukes. And then the SALT II treaty came, and we had to go back to North Dakota later to take them all apart again. But so first and second grade was actually in a weird place where everything was frozen, and walked to school in the snowmobile suit. I would go through a cornfield or wheat fields where you could totally get lost, and then it took you through a cemetery, and I swear I slipped into a grave once. There was places there where you could just dig. Well, like one time we had to slide out the second story window to get out. You open the front door and it's just a white wall. But so I used to just build massive forts, and then you could just dig in as deep as you wanted and build whole hotel room in there.
Ooh, it sounds fabulous.
It was crazy, I was glad to get back to Florida, that's for sure. But so first memories of like school and stuff, and I was in the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts and the Weeblos and even the Civil Air Patrol. And wait, where were we? Okay, the water in Florida. Yes, I have a lot of dreams about the water as well, like standing tidal waves that just hang there, as you stand there and look at them, like a movie. And sometimes when I've actually driven my van underwater in a dream and breathing underwater and really wondering about that, like, how is this happening? Lucid dreams are such a trip. But you couldn't keep me out of the water in Florida. Like it was, we had a pool, and I was on the swim team, and I was on the crew team, and I would go into the ocean, and then eventually just became a beach bum. But strangely, there became a point where I couldn't go in the water. There was something changed, or it was, I don't know if it was instinct. I don't know what it was, but I suddenly couldn't go in the ocean anymore. Just my body would revile from it. Just didn't want to be in it at all. So I don't know what happened, if it was instinctual or what.
Had
But
you
Do you
just
remember
seen
how old you?
Had you
do you
just seen
remember-
Jaws?
Yeah, I was there when the whole Jaws things happened. I bring that up on my show a lot, when especially talking about today, you know, just how easy it is to scare everybody, because that destroyed the economy there.
Yep.
But we used to do that in our pool. We would sit there and pretend that there was a shark in the pool until you could see it. And then we'd swim across the pool really fast. And oh my God, it was so terrifying, because you literally saw that shark swimming back and forth in the shadows, you know, in the dark. So and
How old
there
were
were
you?
times I would just stay underwater, and I swear I was under there for minutes, you know. We would just sit at the bottom of the pool and have tea parties and stuff.
How old were you when your attitude changed towards the ocean?
It hadn't been much later, into like 18, 19. So that would be somewhere around 1987, somewhere around there.
And at the time when that started to happen, what was it? Was it a fear? What actually
No,
was the mood behind that shift?
it was more like there's something poison in there. Just, it wasn't really a fear, just reviled, you know, just like, nope, can't go in it. And I
And
don't know.
are you still this way with the like say natural bodies of water as opposed to pools?
Not so much, but I'm really hyperthermic. So any of the springs and stuff, I have a really hard time, because I just have zero body fat, zero. And so I freeze instantly. I could be in a 102-degree day and have hypothermia in my inner tube, you know. So but so no, I haven't really been submerged in a long time. I don't even have a bath downstairs, so I haven't even bathed, you know, shower all the time now. So it's been a long time since I've been submerged in water.
And also with early you, so you gave us a teaser of dreams and the water dreams. Did they in particular start when you were very young, or have they just been there all along?
I had a recurring place. It was dark, it was wooden, it was more like a dock, and with a cover, and there was always water. And so it was like yeah, like you were in a dark dock with a wooden cover around. And so that is a constant place that I would go to in my dreams. And it's funny because I remember I would have some lucid dreams, especially when I would realize I was there again. You know, it was kind of a trigger for me to go, oh wait, I'm in my dream. And so I would try to fly around and such. And when I flew around, I would use my hands like a hummingbird. And it just looks so ridiculous. And the dream people would just laugh at me. I eventually got challenged to fly. Well, this was kind of a strange lucid dream. I can see every minute of it, even right now, the hills, the trees, the mountain. And I'm strolling through. And this is not in the recurring place. This is a different place. This is a different dream. But as I come up, there's this coven of witches that are circling in the air, and they're cackling and taunting me, saying, boys can't fly, boys can't fly. And I'm like determined, and I'm very, very lucid in this, and I'm just very determined. I'm like, I'm gonna prove them wrong. And I remember using my physical brain, convincing my brain to levitate, so therefore lifting my skull up into the air. And I lifted myself up to their height. And at that moment, an electric being, which felt feminine, came swooping through with lightning bolts shooting off the body into the ground. And the witches were all just flabbergasted, like I had just performed some miracle and was, got benediction from some goddess. And so I defeated them in that. But
I love that one. How old would you say you were?
that one, I have a real hard time with space-time. Like,
yeah,
but I
feel
was
you.
older, most of my lucid dreams came older. The earlier dreams as a kid were more kind of like those, did I float out of the house today? I think I did. But can I just lay some dreams on you?
Yeah, let's get to some of the technical stuff first here.
Okay.
And if this has changed in your lifetime, certainly just bring that up. First of all, what does the dream realm, how does it appear for you? Is it color? Is there texture? Are you able to read? Are you able to smell? The whole sensate thing. How do you experience that plane?
Yeah, it's funny now that you mentioned smell. I don't have any recollections of smell, but definitely color and texture, and definitely knowing, the dreams that I recall, which are few, are very vivid and very, very often very lucid, where you can make choices. It's such an interesting thing when you realize that you have this ability to make a choice. You're like thinking inside of the dream. It's I don't know, even just that sometimes will wake me up from realizing that I was in control. But where were we?
On how you experience the
Right.
field of dreaming.
Right. So they're very, very vivid, very real. Lots of, but it's interesting. I can't think of any scents, any smells.
What about, are you able to read text in dreams?
Well, I had one dream recently where I was trying to decode the backs of books.
Ooh.
And there was some symbols, and I was supposed to find these particular ones and then bring them over to where the food was. And I remember looking at those symbols and looking at these weird, it was a little more like Scanner Darkly, where it was definitely just kind of weird symbols that didn't make any sense. But even after the dream, I was certain that it was pointing to me something in my library, and I went looking for it in the real world because I really knew that symbol, but I never figured out what it was.
Well, it's interesting. I wonder when you do, though, if you won't have a deja vu.
Right.
And also in the dream space, what about architecture? So let me preface this with. Oh, carry on.
I actually have a picture of one of my dream places as I was wandering in Guatemala off the bottomless lake, the Adelon. I strolled past a place that was in my dream. I took a picture of it and was like, I have a picture of what I dreamt. It was crazy to me.
Oh, I live for that kind of stuff. Those connections, that the bridging experiences, that's juice.
Yeah.
And also, what about, so with like actual architecture, like spaces, houses, are there places you go that are familiar? Maybe they've changed and they shift around and they're not the same, but the place, like you have a house, or the space. It may be different, but it's familiar. Do you experience that, or is it always fresh and new?
No, I definitely have that recurring place. The
Okay.
dock.
Yeah, as you'd mentioned. And does that one still pop up?
No. Now I'm battling in the clone labs.
Ooh. Yes, I wanted to get to clones later too. Oh, of course you are, Freeman.
Wait, are these the Donald Marshall clone labs?
Well, he accuses me. And so now I always jokingly refer those nights to the battles in the clone labs. But before we get to that, while I was in Mexico, I find that altered states, or not psychedelics, but just being in a weird place and sleeping there, that tends to cause more lucid dreams, and I'm often in weird places sleeping there. And one time in Mexico, I was sleeping in an empty lot. It was daytime, and there were a group of hippies around me, and I got out of my body and I flew up over the building, and the building everything looked exactly as it was. And I flew around and looked at everything. But the one big difference that I guess kind of let me know, other than the fact that I was flying, but that didn't seem to concern me, but that there was a pool on the top of the building, which wasn't there. But in the dream state it was. And so everything else was exact. And I flew down amongst the people, and then I went and landed back at my body, and I stood up, like physically, literally, and had a memory of flying, because it was so real, and everything was exactly, I mean, it was an out-of-body experience because everything was there. Oh, that reminds me of another out-of-body experience I had. It was my birthday at Rainbow Gathering. I go out into the national forest every year almost and live with 30,000, 20,000 people out in the woods for a couple of weeks.
I haven't thought about rainbow gatherings in years. That's a good flashback for me, by the way.
Oh, nice. What was yours? I mean, where'd you go?
In New York, and I think it was the 90s, I think.
All right.
I'm like you, I'm terrible with years, but my
Yeah.
friends could back up the information better than I could. Oh, sorry, my poodle.
Well, somebody had given me a mushroom, and somebody handed me a bud, and it was my birthday, and well, I don't know what that was, but it poisoned me. And so I was sitting there talking with this girl, and next to a fire, and suddenly I went blind. And I'm sitting there in the dark, just complete. Well, it was dark out anyway, but it was I was completely blind. And I'm like, oh no, I don't know what's going on. Like, my brain's trying to compute. And so I just lay back and lay down, and I start to just moan and freak out and overheat. And so I strip off all my clothes, and even though it's next to the fire, and then I find out later that my foot was actually in the fire, which somebody told me, and they had taken my foot out of the fire for me. And I went off. I went distant somewhere, and then I hear this moaning noise, so I go walking towards it, and it was me. And I see myself down there on the ground moaning, and then I get back in my body, and I'm okay again. Everything was fine. Like, my eyesight came back. It was weird, really weird. And that made me think of something else. Oh, well, talking about childhood, I had migraines. I think it's because I shoved this bobby pin through my ear canal.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I don't pressurize very well, and I get migraines when low pressures come in. And so I had this as a kid most of my life, and I used to have to train myself to go into this little point, this little space in my mind where I could just focus, and then I wouldn't feel the migraine at all. And I think people that have migraines know what I'm talking about. And it was like this, training in transcendental meditation from the time I was a young kid up to, now even. So I had that.
So with these experiences, and you know what, I realized while you were talking, I think I was thinking of the New York Starwood. I don't know if you ever went to those.
No.
In New York, those were big. With the lucid dreams, so we've got the kind of the landscape, the way you experience it, and then another of the markers, the general markers. Do you come back from your dreaming experiences with a mood? Do you ever wake up and you can't shake a mood?
Definitely. Some of those are the nights that I just say that I've been battling in the clone lab, even though I didn't have physical effects, whereas sometimes I do have physical effects while battling in the clone lab. I've literally jumped out of my bed and smashed my face into the wall because in my dream that wall wasn't there, and I've lashed out, kicked out, and luckily haven't injured girlfriends or dogs in the process. I don't know, because sometimes I'm in some severe battles, and I mean I injure myself, because I do literally kick out as hard as I can and scream, and it's a little scary at times. And so I one day Donald Marshall starts attacking me on Facebook, and I don't know who he is, and I don't know why he's all mad at me, and so I keep trying to find out why he's just yelling at me on Facebook, as much as you can yell on text, and like, why are you so angry with me, dude? And it turns out that he was telling me that we fighting in the clone lab while I'm sleeping. I'm transported into my clone, and he keeps getting into fights with me, and I'm like, what are we fighting about? He said, well, I was greedy for selling flash drives, and you can have it all for free. It's all free on freemasonry.com. It's not like you gotta buy the flash drive. I just sell things to help keep going, and what the hell. But so anyway, it was a weird thing that he didn't know about these violent thrashes that I was having, and even jumping through walls, and yet all of a sudden he comes and confirms that I'm battling him at the clone lab. I'm like, okay, maybe I am, I don't know.
That's a straight up confirmation, Jerry.
I was going to say, I've never heard you speak about this, so have you ever mentioned it on a show that he would have heard?
No.
That's
that's really good.
Have you battled Katy Perry or Taylor Swift?
It's funny. There might have been something with Britney, honestly.
Britney, yeah, there you go.
I had some bond with her.
I miss Donald Marshall. He was that special kind of crazy that you could listen to.
Yeah, I didn't really want to be included in that camp, honestly.
No, I hear you.
My life's strange enough, people don't. I didn't realize people don't believe people, and I watch Survivor like religiously, and Coach is one of my favorite characters, and he tells a story that's nearly unbelievable to most people because they don't have adventures in their lives. And that was when I kind of realized, people will just like act like they believe you, but they don't. Because most of my life is like that, where it's unbelievable, but it all happened.
Smile and nod.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing I run up against a lot too. It's a lot of people really do not have adventures, and the world is not very magical because of it, or very big. And it is, as you know, more than we could even throw language around. And of course, as you know, I think I heard you say somewhere when you're talking about language, the difference in how much language it takes for English to describe, say, even Chinese or Mandarin or cuneiform language, how we wrap so much more silk around ideas that it's confusing. And of course, it's an intentional spell.
Yeah.
So that's it's hard to convey these experiences to people.
It's like the mask debate.
Yes.
Great
mask debate.
Yes, indeed. So with all this, and then getting a couple more of the foundational things in the dream realm, what about how you experience? And so you've already given us some of this right now with the others, the clones, and what you were just talking about. What about, how do you discern what is not part of a typical your own psyche and others, so that that you're encountering something that's sentient beyond you.
In the dreams.
Yeah, within the dream field.
I've never really thought about that. I have that in my real life, right? Miraculous events.
Start with that then, and we'll weave our way in.
All right. I was because, well, I'm not exactly sure where to go. It like my real life is probably more surreal than my dream life. I've had massive UFO experience. I predicted the future after that, and all the surreal connections that I've found throughout my life. But the thing that really amazed me was when I was out on the road and things would just happen. They would manifest. Anything I needed. If I thought I was hungry, something would show up to feed me, even if I was off in the weirdest place. Constantly running into the same people all over the country, and just always having this divine love guiding me forward. I've had a note come roll up on my shoe, a piece of paper. It said, "I love you." And I felt that at all times. My life was just like filled with goosebumps because everywhere I went, some miracle happened. And so it makes you realize that we are the manifestors, and and then you take in all what's going on, and you realize that we're being written with software, and we're the hardware that actually manifests that software. So my whole life has been this magical trip over and over and over again, no matter, it just keeps going. In the dream world, it's more, well, I had a moment where I was reading the Book of Enoch. And honestly, the Book of Enoch kind of freaked me out because it talked to purgatory, and I just didn't like that idea. I'm kind of claustrophobic, and the idea of being in these cylinders, as described in the Book of Enoch that I was reading, just purgatory sounded like hell to me. But that night I had a dream, and I'm on this second floor balcony of this apartment building, and I see this giant vulture land out in the street. And
Did we lose Freeman?
I don't know.
start to walk towards me. As it's coming at me, I realize it's actually 2 stories. Do you hear me? It says my internet is unstable.
Yeah, we lost you.
Yeah, we lost you for a second. It's those damn crickets behind you.
Well, where was I? Had the vulture landed yet?
No.
Okay, I've read the Book of Enoch. Did you get that?
Yes, you're talking about
freaked you out.
Purgatory.
Purgatory, yeah.
Okay, so that night I have this dream, and I see this vulture land out in the street. I'm on the second floor balcony of this apartment building. I can still see everything about it. And this vulture lands down in the street a ways away. And as it comes closer, I realize it's actually 2 stories tall and has more humanoid features, but I can't see its face. And I want to see what it is, but I have this instinctual urge. I have no choice. I have to feed this thing. This is my DNA programmed instinctual programming. I have to feed this. So I go and I immediately go into the house, into the apartment, and I rummage through the cans and stuff, and I find food for this giant vulture. And it tells me the story of the fallen angels, and tells me that they were actually now trying to repair the damage that they had done. And it was so real and just so wild, and I woke up like believing it. That was one of those pretty wild moments.
That's fantastic. And the vultures are an amazing symbol as well, that I think have they've ebbed and flow in their meaning for people, but in their older context, and when they were, I guess, more in a god form, they were very much revered.
Like ancient Egypt.
Yes, exactly, for the sacred work. So, okay, so what on being lucid in your dreams, and of course, we'll just start meandering and bring out the dreams you've remembered to and thought of to share this evening. I was wondering, what is how do you know when you're lucid? Is there a moment there? Is there ever a trigger? Does it just come on naturally? Do you will it?
Yeah, so far it's been a shock. So there just comes this moment in the dream where I'm thinking and I'm making a choice. And it's that moment that says, oh, wait a minute, you're in control. And it brings me to the point where I'm like, okay, now I can go here or there, or, fly, or and consciously do it. So it's usually a shock. It's just like, oh wow, I got a choice here. I can think. You realize I'm thinking in there. Um, you know.
Freeman?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I lost you there.
No, that was
No, he was done talking.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I
It's
had.
such a weird. This week, I've been listening to live streams and they've just been cutting out. Like, it seems to be happening all over. Of course, that's not suspicious. Okay, cool. And then also, you mentioned your experience when you were in Mexico. That was it really truly an out of body experience. What's the difference? How do you discern the difference when you're in the experience? Is there a difference? For me, it's like a sliding scale of lucidity, really. But is there a difference where you're like, I know I'm in the dream. I have control here. I'm aware that I'm in the dream too. I'm fully out, and then it's that experience, which is very similar to this, but not quite.
Yeah, the actual consciousness inside of the dream is rare. More, I guess, when I say that they were lucid is that they're so vivid. And so I come out with what feels more like a memory than a dream. But I don't have that conscious control that often. That's only happened on a couple of occasions where I felt like, I mean, even when like I was looking for the codes and I knew everything was weird, I still wasn't conscious enough to recognize it as the dream. I just knew it was very strange, and but at the same time, I knew, yeah, I guess I just knew something wasn't right. You know.
When you were, so what's your idea of? I want to get into dreams. So if you have dreams you've brought, I'd love to hear them, and then I want to kind of fit in the idea of, especially with you, who's just got this fantastical history and are very, very aware and open to the experiences that are actually happening and seeing clearly. What separates us from these other dimensions or realms of consciousness that we find ourselves within?
Yeah, I had a shared hallucination with someone, and that was really quite bizarre because you couldn't have made it up. Again, some psilocybin out in the Colorado Rockies, and I was studying Leary at the time, so I really wanted to go into like this transcendental meditation. I had cloaked myself all in white and was sitting in the water pool, and But my friend wasn't as experienced as I. It might have even been his first attempt at these realms. And so he kept like just messing with me the whole time, like my poodle is right now. And just kept pointing at me and touching me with his finger and stuff, and just like totally out there. And as I'm sitting there, I see this little character, a clockwork elf, I swear. A little guy made of light beams that had a triangle over his head and was riding on a tricycle, all made out of little beams of light. And I'm looking at this thing just like, whoa, this is crazy. And it's coming towards me. And my friend starts going, do you see him? Do you see him? Like, the tricycle. He's got that tricycle. He's on a triangle. And there's just no way anybody could have made that up. And all of a sudden, that little guy just raced right straight towards my third eye and just rolled right into my head. And it's a really bizarre moment. There was no way you could like have gotten that. You can't. Nobody would guess that.
That's incredible. That's what I mean. For me, the most meaningful, and I have a fantastical life, and the most meaningful stuff I'm finding is this overlap. I mean, that's kind of why the show started, and it's that kind of overlap that is somehow there's just more there, and there is something magical and validation from others that are experiencing the same thing,
Let
and
me mention
especially carry on.
I grew up in the cow fields. It was never too far to drive in Florida to go find cow patties with psilocybin growing all over them. So it was a pretty common, normal experience for me to be in these altered states often.
I did not learn. I grew up for part of my life in Iowa, where we certainly have cows, and my grandfather had cows. I didn't learn that cow connection to psilocybin until later. I thought all this time I could have been harvesting from the cat, the natural, the gift of the gods, right?
Yeah. I mean, Johns Hopkins University is saying it's the true cure for depression.
Yes.
And I think it really, it liberated me, obviously, to be able to traverse the world as I have, to be able to just go and just go.
Well, with that said, what are your I kind of wanted to get this later, but also, were you raised with a religion?
No, I thank God every day.
Yes, I know exactly.
My mom was abused by Catholics. She was actually rescued from the Catholics by the Nazis, and so she just didn't allow any religion because the nuns had been so mean to her. My dad wasn't religious; he was Freemason, so. Yeah, it just wasn't even a thing, which was so thankful because for me, to not have, to be not put into love it or hate it either way. I was open to all, understandings instead of being cast, because I see a lot of people that.
The baggage. A lot of baggage out there.
Did your sorry.
Carry on, Jerry.
No, did your dad ever try to get you into Freemasonry, or did you ever venture into that?
No, I didn't even know he was, like that's the crazy part. But I don't know that he was. I've been trying to piece together that timeline because some part of the story says that he had to leave Freemasonry when he married my mom, because my mom was married to a different worshipful master in Kaiserslautern in Germany, and you can't marry another worshipful master's wife and stay a Freemason if you're another master, and which my dad was. Actually, the man who raised my dad, the master, was my mom's husband, and they agreeably gave, my mom left the other man agreeably for my dad. So I've never quite figured out if he remained in Masonry, because I have some stuff that makes me think that he did, and that my mom stayed in the Eastern Star. Uh, but I don't know of any. Yeah, I didn't know any of it.
Yeah, it's hard to know. It's hard to know. And the way I've understood it too, some of the old policies became less rigid because the numbers dwindled. So I grew up, my family is all Masons and Eastern Stars too.
Hmm.
And it was just my normal. I mean, it wasn't, nobody really taught, my uncle was, the only public aspect was when my uncle would do the Shriner thing,
Now, that's the other thing. Every person, since I've started doing this on television, started promoting this idea, because before me, no one talked about the occult aspects of Hollywood and politics, right? That was me that threw this one out at the world. And I feel like a pretty amazing magician to have caused what I did. I can't believe what happened afterwards. But what I discovered was that everyone that bonded with me and wanted to know more and really wanted to dig in suddenly found out that their family was involved. I was over, so I when I started the TV show, I was living in a jazz band's house, and I would just, yeah. And so I was living in my van on Coffee Street or Christmas Light Street next to a coffee shop in Austin when I was asked to make a television show. And so I didn't know I was going to stay in Austin for 5 years to keep doing that. But I thought I was there for the weekend, you see. But I ended up living in this jazz band's couch, and I really only formed the closest relationship with one of the members, although there were, close relationships with everybody. But one took to the information, wanted to know more, really study. We went over to his house for Thanksgiving, and all of a sudden his dad, and this was the night after I had recorded Codex Magica with Tex Mars, the whole thing on hand signs and gestures of the Illuminati. And I was excited about it, and I unfortunately brought it up at Thanksgiving dinner at these family's house. But it wasn't me that destroyed the dinner, it was the dad, because it turned out he was all involved in this. He was chasing flying saucers in Project Starlight, and brought us out into his laboratory and started, and my friend, who was also bonding in the information, didn't know any of this about his dad until that night. And so I found so many times when somebody actually gets into this information that they have family connections. It's like genetic memory that we're all living through.
Yeah, and there's just, there's the idea, like in any good private circle, there's just, you don't talk about stuff. And it was not a secret in my growing up, but I did think, because of my personal experience, that everyone's parents were, I just thought everyone was a Mason or a jester, or in the Order of Rebecca and Eastern Star and Oddfellow. I just thought that was all normal, and it certainly seemed to be normal in the Midwest for sure. But when I got out west, it seemed to be less. I just started to notice it wasn't normal, and that most people actually were raised with a religion. That was also kind of a strange thing. I thought that other people, I didn't realize that people really were born and raised in religions. I was about 11 when that realization happened for me.
We always distinguish the Christians. Well, I always felt sorry for the Christian children. Their parents were always the meanest and the strictest, and so that's what I knew of Christianity, was that they have mean parents.
Yeah. Well, I encountered mean people in general because I was strange, but yeah, it was always definitely, like, I'd call them I think they're now, what are they called, the Karens and something. We called them in the 80s Muffies and Biffs. So it's the same thing. But with all this going on, how's your dream life been in general throughout the span of your life? And how much has it brought forth, say, this, especially with the lucid stuff and the OB stuff, precognitive stuff, because you do have that record of having your pulse on things that are going to happen. You have, a fantastic hit record there. And I'm wondering, and also you're really good at pattern recognition, which is part of it, understanding symbols and all this that we're swimming in, that most people take for granted and think is, I guess they don't think about these things. So has your dream life, or moving into that dimension, which is what people think of as dreams, informed any of this stuff in the apparent reality we're in?
Yeah, I tried to think of that, and not so much. It's more in my art than it is in dreams. So, um, a lot of what I I promote and project comes out through art, and so I have one classic example, the picture I drew when I was 10 that I talk about all the time because it's just a mind boggler. And it's in my Facebook page photo. Artist actually drew me and the art and stuff. Anyway, so I did this artwork when I was 10 years old, which was right before Star Wars came out, like just a month before. And I drew these 4 flying space shuttles because I grew up at NASA and I watched all of them launch from my backyard. And on these space shuttles, I wanted to draw. Well, okay, so I drew the 4 space shuttles. In between them, I drew what I thought was a spiral galaxy, and then on the other side, a winged serpent. And I won the art competition for school for this one in 5th grade. But on the space shuttles, I wanted to put a really cool symbol. And I remember just sitting there really focusing on it. And I wanted a cool symbol on my space shuttle. I'd already drawn flames down them, giving them a hot paint job and all that. And I wanted a cool symbol on them. And I drew this curved line with straight line through it. And it's so kind of like a profile of a radar dish. And I was kind of like, oh man, that's not that cool. But so I went and I put it on all of the space shuttles. Well, so lo and behold, 18 years later, when I'm 28, I'm reading The Sirius Mystery by Robert K. Temple. And it's all about the Dogon. Now, I've been into the fish people my whole life, like merfolks and Atlantis, and all of that has always, like, I'm always surprised people don't know that the merfolk and Atlantis story go together. I thought these things a lot of times were common knowledge, but anyway.
Yeah, I wanted you to definitely get into this stuff.
All right. Because this blew me away, because here I heard about the Sirius mystery. And of course, Sirius is the major star of Freemasonry. So that was the first blazing pentagram that I saw was with Sirius, was the Masons, and that they worship Sirius. And then the Sirius mystery came out, and what's his name? Oh well, it doesn't matter. I'll think of it in a second. But it was reputed to be a perfect book. Like, there's not an error in it. I can't think of the author who said that, but so I wanted to go see what this is all about, because I was digging it. And to find out that this is a whole story about fish beings coming and visiting these aboriginals in Mali, Africa, and teaching them the secrets of the trinary star system of Sirius, and that they called them the repulsive abomination, and they would slither up out of the water and teach them about things like atoms and stars, like people that live in mud huts need to know. And it's just this fantastical book, but it's all true, right? And well, at least it's the true accounting of the Mali tribe. And they had a symbol that they were given for Sirius, which is exactly that curved line with the straight line through it that I put on every space shuttle. Now, NASA's symbol is a pentagram, which of course was started by the Freemasonry, and the blazing pentagram is Sirius. So actually the symbols line up. So then what I thought was a spiral galaxy in the middle turned out to be that craft that was filmed by the Columbia Space Shuttle while they did the tether experiment. So they dragged this giant tether through the atmosphere in space and tried to charge it with electricity. And I guess it charged up too much and it broke off and it floated off. And as it did, the cameras and the ultraviolet lights were showing these beings. They were craft that were zooming around this thing that had the spirals, and they had this little divot, and they almost looked like amoeba all around in space. Well, I superimposed that over that picture, and it's the exact thing. I mean, I have the divot, I have everything, the spirals, everything. And that event didn't even happen till 10 years after I drew the drawing. Then another researcher took that to hyperdimensional physics, and my drawing completely fit his concept of hyperdimensional physics. And then, of course, I have that winged serpent on the other side. And I, of course, had never heard of David Icke because he wasn't writing books yet. But the winged serpent was right there in my depiction as well, and it all tied together. And that picture I drew at 10 has been like a data point for me to focus on what's actually happening on planet Earth. So that was pretty wild.
Didn't you have a bunch of vectors in there too?
Vectors?
Like V's? I remember some.
No.
I remember seeing the picture, and you were talking about how you had the vector.
Oh, with the Volkswagen.
No.
Okay.
No, like the NASA logo, the V.
I can see that
Like Star
picture in my
Trek.
head with the winged serpent.
Oh, well, that was a different artwork I did.
Okay.
I did that for 9/11, right? So
Right. Sorry, I'm confused them.
I actually started to figure things out, started to see the occulted codes going on, and focused on 9/11 because of its esoteric meaning. And I made an artwork once the towers had been hit. You know, I told a bunch of people, hey, there's going to be a major terrorist attack. Don't freak out on 9/11. And of course they freaked out and came yelling at me. All right. But in that artwork, I put the Space Command seal, which is the same seal you see in Stargate from Cheyenne Mountain. And, I knew that was the actual Stargate or Star Space Command logo. I was projecting from 2001 on 9/11. I made this artwork to state where this was going and actually where it was coming from. So on George Bush's podium, I put the Space Command seal, saying that it was a Space Force operation, because I changed the podium into the Twin Towers collapsing, and then I put the Space Command seal there. Now, this was in 2001. I made that, projecting to say, here comes the Space Force. And of course, then I went on to make DVDs like Obama Cloning and the Coming Space War. But, even as far back as 2001, I knew that the goal here was Space Force.
Yeah, and here we are with it, where they've come out in public.
Yeah, yeah, and Trump acts like it's his idea. I've been covering that for 10 years.
Oh yeah, it's funny, but they had to. They that was the way of officially introducing it to the masses, and because here we are, and this is where we are, and this stuff is the rubber's on the road now, so those things have to unroll really fast for the public to wrap their minds around the
wait till they catch up to me, boy.
Yeah, well, they should go check your archive out. I want to get on the Raphaim though, and the underwater beings a bit. And if you have had in your dream life, or just say, and this can include any other state of consciousness outside of the nowness consciousness where we are kind of right now, your experiences with the beings in the water, whatever you want to call them, but they've certainly there's certainly a lot there to ruminate on.
Well, I find it very interesting that they're now making a black version of H.P. Lovecraft, getting them all into the Cthulhu mythos.
Yeah, I saw that.
Well, they did that with Merlin, the Arthurian stuff too.
In the Crusade, that new series on Netflix, yeah, has all black Arthur family.
Yeah, that one, which is that stuff's, that's so. I mean,
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, and we got to get above the idea of that, our temples, but it is, that those are different mythos. I wonder how it would be if all of a sudden, Akhenaten, hello to Obama, was white. So anyway, but yeah, the Raphaim and the underwater beings, I'm particularly intrigued with, and I've got to tell you that that's where I found you in the world, because I have a very specific relationship. I've never gone in water. I was born with web feet and all that, and I have been terrified of water my whole life, and yet I have to live by it. So natural bodies of water, I have to have a close relationship with it, but I won't get in it. And the information that you've brought into the collective has been meaningful for me. So I'm wondering, has this stuff been in your dream world at all?
Not so much, I don't think. For me, it was in my imagination a lot. I wanted to be the man from Atlantis. I don't know if you guys remember the Patrick Duffy television show.
Heck yeah.
But, and the creature from the Black Lagoon. There's a weird bond I have with the creature from the Black Lagoon. But no, honestly, I didn't have any connection dream-wise, and I was really actually shocked when I finally started reading H.P. Lovecraft, because rumor had it he was revealing secrets through his books, so I started digging in, and I had no idea that I was going to get into this Cthulhu mythos and the whole merfolk taking over the minds and souls of humanity. I didn't know. I had no idea what I was in for when I opened Lovecraft. Just like when I opened Robert K. Temple, I had no idea I was going to be digging into fish people again. So it definitely has been just a running theme throughout my entire life.
Well, and then at that, when you're 17 or 18, when the tide, shifted, and your idea of water, with the ocean, with the natural bodies of water shifted. I mean, I find that deeply interesting.
There were oil spills and things like that. I never know, as a kind of a more natural human, right? I've never had an alarm clock, right? Like when I went to college, I finally realized after a few months that I had to buy a watch. I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, the natural instincts of that. Just before the virus, I stopped going out. I stopped going to my chiropractor. I stopped, even though I needed to go, I just wouldn't go. And it's kind of the same with the water. It was just like, no, don't go in. And so I think sometimes if you're, like an animal that can detect earthquakes, you just sense it, like, nope, danger. And so, there were a lot of flesh-eating bacteria in Florida in those days, things like that. I don't know, I don't know why I suddenly stopped going out right before the pandemic, long before, like, October, September, before it actually was announced.
I guess so let's look at the idea of states of consciousness vis-a-vis realms or fields that we understand. We understand that we may not understand them, but we all agree that dreaming is possible, and it happens even if people don't remember their dreams. And then there's this idea of a different field, which is under the water, and this is a whole other place we can go, albeit mostly we go with technology. And then there's the idea of whatever space is. And so when we start layering states of being or fields that we can experience or at least know of and do not, most people will agree on all those things. What about the idea that comes to mind when we start working with, say, hadron colliders and quantum realities and all this other stuff that is winding round this experience that we are now all having? Where is your mind going now with all this as we start to see a shift in the collective towards a darker arc, a darker storyline of mass control, and that involves the covering of the mouth and staying apart from others? There's ideas. I've been talking about some of these ideas in my psychic eye about what I think, but I'm wondering, where do you think we are with all this, and why is this all winding up at this point, and how is it all connected?
Yeah, big questions, and I got a few answers. As they put the alpha magnetic spectrometer up on the International Space Station, and the Vatican and CERN was a co-joined project to find the anti-universe. They put this device up there. It's got a reptilian claw as its corporate logo on it. It's called the alpha magnetic spectrometer by Grawlater, and the Vatican and CERN put this on the International Space Station to see the anti-universe. And at that same time, Benjamin Funes and Consul Magno, the two lead astronomers of the Vatican, using the Lucifer telescope, announcing Goldilocks planets and saying that they would baptize any life, and that the extraterrestrials didn't know original sin because they weren't born of Eve. And they were making all these announcements while the Royal Society had a massive gathering of people doing creating electronic brains, the Blue Brain Project, Henry Markram and the Blue Brain Project. But they also brought in the extraterrestrial ambassadors of NASA and the UN, Maslin Hoffman and Linda Rothschild. They're the extraterrestrial ambassadors, and for working for the Office of Outer Space and stuff. So then you bring in the Lovecraft, you bring in the magic, you bring in the black magic that has been behind all of that all along. CERN's corporate logo being 666 with a hyperdimensional portal, and their weird ceremonies, and the Shiva standing outside, and creating the World Wide Web. And meanwhile, Starlink satellites are being launched almost daily. It's ridiculous. So there's been 2 launches to Mars just this week. China and the United Arab Emirates and America, or was it America? Yeah, America's rover. So all these launches to Mars, all these launches of satellites have been going on during this whole lockdown. And but okay, so there's the layer of where they're going with everything, and the idea of, say, even ancient AI that's actually running all of this from behind the scenes, creating this mega thing that opens portals into the other dimensions. And strangely enough, they built the next most sophisticated collider in Transylvania, just to keep things a little more creepy, because that all ties in with all of this Lovecraftian story. And I'm not surprised that they're trying to bring it into Black culture to start to introduce them, because obviously it's well written into the Church of Satan for the Cthulhu mythos. but so there's the layer of black magic that lies behind all of this. And then there's the science of what's going on, of us announcing that we're opening portals to the other dimensions, that something might come through, that we can see the anti-universe. And where was I going to go with this? Sorry, it's a little late.
How does it relate to what's going on with the virus, I think was the question.
Oh, right,
with,
right.
Not
So
with
why,
the virus.
With the masks. Well, right.
With everything.
With the whole lockdown, that was kind of critical because, well, one, let me just say that in the season 2 of The Dead Zone, the television series, I don't know if you've seen this, but the episode called Plague, and this came out in 2003, I think. And
what is this series?
It's called The Dead Zone. It's based off Stephen King's book. They also had a movie out back in the day, but this was the TV
Christopher
series.
Walken.
Well,
it was the kid from 16 Candles.
Right, but not the movie, the TV series.
Yeah. The three name kid from, I can't remember his name now. He was in 16
You both
Candles.
recommend this series.
There's
actually the episode in season 2 called Plague. So the thing is the character has a dead zone in his brain, and this allows him psychic premonitions. And so he goes into this high school and he has a premonition that they're all going to get sick. He sees them in masks and on ventilators and the kids dying and all of this. And it all starts with this little girl blowing bubbles on everyone, which is what they just found AOC doing, blowing bubbles in the little girl's face. But so in this, this is 17 years ago, this TV show came out. And so he has to inject himself with the virus, basically die from the virus and his psychic self to discover what they did in his autopsy so that he could find out the cure. So they announce, well, we're going to have to go into lockdown. And they make a comment of, well, lockdown. And he's like, well, we'll just call it that for now. This is what the police officer's saying. So they put the whole town in lockdown. And then he goes into his psychic state with the virus and discovers the secret of how to cure it. And they discover first that it's a coronavirus from China, and the cure is chloroquine. So all of that was in the TV series The Dead Zone in 2003, I think it was.
When was that out?
Huh?
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was season 2, episode 14.
Yeah.
2003.
Yeah, this stuff is always out there. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, but, I was talking about this moment in 2008. I have a TV show called The Money Spell. And you go listen to that and you'll think it was recorded right now. I'm talking about the real ID. I'm talking about everything that's going down. And so when this all happened, I wasn't like, what's happening? I was like, why is it happening now? Why are they forcing this at this moment?
Yes.
The New World Order was making its way. It was having no troubles. Nobody was standing in its way. Trump. So I thought, well, maybe, but that doesn't make much sense because this was a global event. And then suddenly they announced that General O'Shaughnessy has taken over continuity of government, and we have them down in deep under Cheyenne Mountain where Stargate is, right? And Space Command and all of that. And General O'Shaughnessy's sending us messages from deep underground telling us we're going to be okay. We're going to send it. And they got all those boats out, the Mercy and the other one on the either side of the coast. They put up all of these hospitals, just the slap together. I can't think of a word for that, but, just temporary hospitals put up everywhere. And we're like, what are they doing? Why are they doing this? This doesn't make any sense. Because one, continuity of government, you wouldn't have the president and vice president unmasked standing on stage giving a presentation together. The whole idea of continuity of government's to save somebody, so you can't have everybody on a stage together in a pandemic. So it didn't make any sense, right? And why were we getting these messages? So immediately I knew that the real threat was asteroids. And so I went on Dan Fogler's show, actually, the 4K experience, or 4D experience. That's what it is, the 4D experience. Dan Fogler, if you don't know, from all the movies he's done. Yeah. nobody knows who Dan Fogler is. Do you guys know who Dan Fogler is?
No.
No, isn't that funny? I'm more famous than Dan. Haha. Dan Fogler, he's in Walking Dead. He's in Fantastic Beasts. Most people remember him from Balls of Fury. He was in Good Luck Chuck. The list goes on and on. He had his own TV show, Man Up. Yeah, until you see him, you don't know, right? So my whole career, I'm in a movie with Dan Fogler and Anne Hathaway, and I can never mention Dan, even though it's his movie, because nobody knows who he is, and it's kind of sad.
What movie was that?
Don Peyote.
Oh, right.
Yeah, definitely worth watching. Hard to understand because half the movie got hit the chopping room floor, but I managed to stay in it because I read his tarot and I blew their mind. But everybody else got cut, so I got to stay in the movie. So I was on Dan's show right as the COVID thing's coming, and I told him, there's a comet that has a cyanide tail coming our way, which I can't think of the name of that comet at this moment, because then it was immediately followed by another comet Swan, but I can't remember the name of the first one. But what really appeared to be,
was it Ison?
I don't think so.
I thought Swan was after Ison.
Ison?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't sound right.
Okay.
But so anyway, just to close this thought is immediately to me, everything seemed like a reaction to an incoming asteroid. And now I've been tracking this for a long time. I have this whole Space War News section where I track the incoming bolides that cause earthquakes and sonic booms, but don't actually have a rock, and nobody can really tell what they are. And it could be space weaponry. Who knows? The X-37B is up there right now with its microwave beaming radiation down on us from the sun, and they have every ability to hurl meteors at the planet. So that to me seemed like why the trigger happened at that moment and the reaction that happened. And so we went looking, and sure enough, according to JPL's analytics, it shows that there was this horde of asteroids that were coming on the planet the day of lockdown. And somehow we miraculously missed them all. One came through, one that they had no idea about. Like, they have all these others being tracked. And the one that they were making a big deal about, which is like a number, it's like CO 1998, was one of the more distant ones. Like, there were many others when you saw the JPL analysis, that there were many others far closer than the one that they were reporting on. And there was about 30 or 40 of them that were coming straight at us, and then they managed to miss us, and one slipped through and became the closest to hitting planet Earth since the dinosaurs. And so all of that actually happened, but nobody was paying attention to that. And so I think was the major trigger, is they really thought we were about to hit an extinction level event.
And so you think that's why the moving forward with all this into the collective has unraveled at this particular time on the line?
I think that's what pushed their hand. This has been the plan all along, and that's why I've been talking about it for 12 years. And it's so this is no shock. What's shocking is people's reaction, the lack of sovereignty and humanity. Oh my god.
Yes. Oh, right on. Everyone's right in line, right in step.
And this kind of echoes with what Shane Bales was telling us a couple weeks ago.
Tell me more.
No, just that there's something coming.
Yeah.
That's just what I've been saying as well.
A celestial event, I should say.
Yeah.
I've put it forth in many videos, and I mean, everyone knows what I think, so I'm not here to get on all that, but it's interesting, and I like hearing, I don't want to say it's validating hearing how so many people are really seeing clearly what is actually unfolding. And I think this is where it gives me personally, and I am strong in personal constitution and very mm, lucid, that it gives me a chill knowing what's unfolding. And so, and I'm also one of these people that wars have uncertain wars are uncertain, and there's, I'm not an optimist, I'm not a pessimist. I always try to walk that center line. It's the martial arts training, I think. And but it does feel very dire, and the further into this we get, the more obvious it is.
That's the
And
good thing, right? But like
yes,
my soul is screaming out that this is like a cocoon. And I have no doubts in my soul and I don't, I can't get anyone to believe me, but I think humanity's gonna blossom. Uh, and I don't know why I think that. It's not like I projected or, have some reason for believing that, but my soul absolutely believes that this is more of a cocoon and that we will transform.
Do you have this overwhelming feeling that you're trying to push through a membrane? Because to get through this to something else, I brought this up with Nish a couple weeks ago, if you remember.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of the whole cocoon idea in a way. I just never thought of it that way.
Yeah, and if anything, they blew their hand, right? Like they went so over the top, nobody's buying it. I mean, everybody's running around in a mask, but they're all kind of like, "Well, I don't really believe I need to wear this," But they don't realize that they live in this fascist dictatorship because they don't remember what fascism is. It's the
Right.
corporations that are keeping everybody in masks. It's not the government.
Right,
The
right,
president
right.
doesn't wear a mask.
Exactly. In fact, the mandates aren't actually legal, nor can they
Yeah.
be enforced. So it's all corporate. That's absolutely right.
But it's crazy. It's pretty wild. I really didn't expect people to fall for it. I really didn't.
I wish I could say I hoped for better. Let me put it that way.
Right.
I want to get your idea, Freeman, on humans, Homo sapiens sapien. So we understand the apparent science of what makes a Homo sapiens sapien that. But what is your idea of humans on this planet as opposed to, say, other life forms, and not in the old school stuff of Cro-Magnon and then Neanderthal and all that? What makes up a modern human to you?
Well, I consider white man the anomaly. Like we're the freaks of nature. We're the ones that don't belong. Right. I mean, the Dogon tribe, as we were talking about, they still live in mud huts. Right. I mean, they haven't moved. And but white man, oh my God. So I've had this theory using Velikovsky's worlds in collision and kind of combining that with exopolitics. And I really do believe that the brown skinned people were earthlings and the white skinned people were Martians. And when Venus came in and destroyed the atmosphere and bounced Earth and Mars out of their orbits, that's the whole flood story and everything, but it was probably the Martian ocean. So the story of Velikovsky tells of Venus coming into the solar system, the great destroyer, Lucifer. That's a Venus, and
Yes.
striking Earth. Now there's a massive piece of Earth missing, the Pacific Basin. If we took the ocean away, there'd be a huge chunk of the Earth just gone. And so according to Velikovsky's story, this planet came in, or comet as they called it, but Venus struck the planet, and then this knocked them on their belts of gravitation. So Earth actually moved to where Mars is, and Mars is where Earth is now, and moved another belt and lost its oceans, lost its atmosphere in the move. and that ocean stayed in that gravitational wave that Earth now occupied, and so the oceans of Mars actually hit Earth, and that was the floods, because the floods are told in every continent. And so then I believe white man, being haggard and coming from a high civilization of Atlantis, which was on Mars, came and started colonizing this planet. Because of all the stories between the battles of Mars and Earth are constant through the ancient past too. That's why Mars is always known as this god of war. So the Caucasians suddenly pop up in the Caucasus Mountains. Nobody really knows where we came from, but I really do believe that this planet is somewhat of a seeding place of different extraterrestrial races, and you can kind of they each have their own star, their own, like Freemasonry has Sirius, China the dragon, Russia and the bear, and they, different constellations each, and then their cultures kind of follow that. You can even, if it doesn't sound too bad, there's more homogenization in the Asian culture, a more hive mind in their culture than in, say, the West, where there's just rugged individualism. And so that fits better with the reptilian ideas and the concepts of hive mind think. And so it, as Battlestar Galactica, the Mormon tale of the creation of humans on planet Earth, you have this different races of humans coming to planet Earth, and they all made off with the Neanderthals and create life on planet Earth. At least that was the latest version of Battlestar Galactica, which I'm a huge fan of. All of the Battlestars, actually. I'm just a space nut. But so I really believe that life has been on planet Earth for a long, long time. There's been rising and falling civilizations for tens of thousands of years,
I have pondered in my journeys trying to understand where I come from and what I am. And like you, have had a very fantastical life, and am so happy that it's something that the people around me can agree upon and talk about, so that it's not just me saying that. And one of the things that has led me into pondering this is, well, having been born with webbed feet and then my fear of the water. And I started to, and you can see all my veins through my skin. Like, I'm so white that I was made fun of by white people. So, and there certainly was no privilege in that, let me tell you. And so I have wondered, and just recently, actually, as I'm trying to dig into my mother's tale, what the water plays in the melanin factor, because I clearly am lacking in that. And I clearly have some sort of strange connection to the water, and yet I'm completely afraid of it. And so I'm wondering, and I think I'd heard you speak, I cannot recall. Like I said, it was the water that brought me to you. Speak about these things, and certainly Lovecraft brings all that out. And then I've, some downloads I've had with cephalopod energy. But I'm trying to wrap my head around sometimes the idea of the topic at hand, I guess, with the collective and melanated, and as an unmelanated person, and having I feel a deep connection to this earth space, and never really could. Everyone always wants to say Pleiadian with me and all that outer stuff, and like the tall whites and all that stuff. And where I could see it, if when we look at the photos and stuff, but or the drawings of, I'm feeling more connected to the deep water for some reason, and why that would play a part in my being so unmelanated, and looking around and wondering if that's where the Caucasian experience could have come. And so I'm wondering on your ideas of what's the difference between outer space and say inner water. And I've heard you talk on the water experience. In fact, I think you're talking your information is probably some of the best that I've heard.
Thank you. And yeah, that a
Is
lot of
that
that
your
came
house
out.
or mine?
That's not mine.
I don't know what that
It
is.
just sounds like a sheep in your house.
Dolphin.
Oh, isn't that weird? I have no
Fish
idea
being.
what that is.
It's a dolphin call.
Is it your cat?
I have no, I don't know. But anyway,
You got rabbits? Maybe
Freeman.
it's a chicken. You got like all kinds of animals in your house. Who knows what the fuck it is?
I have a little permaculture setup, but there's only the poodles in here with me. Anyway, back to you,
But yeah,
Freeman.
I mean, the biggest difference between Homo sapien and well, apes is that we swim, right? We have webbed fingers and toes, and our hair flows with water. And gorillas, they don't swim. They don't have webbed fingers. They're not designed for water. So it does seem at some point we were adapted to amphibian. And I've always naturally felt amphibian. If I had gills, I would not feel weird at all. Like, it would totally seem normal to me. And I thought I had gills as a kid. Like I say, I would just sit at the bottom of the pool all the time.
Yeah, you seem kindred to me, very much so.
So there's definitely a merfolk connection between, a separation that makes us amphibious where gorillas are not.
What about the whole aquatic ape idea?
I don't really know that well enough to.
It was a theory put forth by, I can't remember the guy's name because I'm old now. I forget his name. It was like a BBC
Jerry, you
dude.
just triggered me. Thank you.
I forget his name.
But
No,
Jerry.
Oh, what? Wait. Freeman, what's your astrological sign?
Cancer.
Is that a water sign?
Yes, it's water.
Yeah,
it's my
I'm
favorite.
as deep Cancer as you can get.
It's the crab.
I'm as
of
Cancer
the
as
moon.
Cancer is.
Yeah.
I'm a Cancer.
What is your idea on, so with all this, and this ties into the water stuff too, but time travel and immortality. And immortality is something I speak on a lot too. It's something I always came in knowing, I had a knowing of it. And like you, I wasn't indoctrinated into religious ideology with those thoughts. So I had to come to that later. I had to search for that. Where are you with that as possible? And it could be tied into the transhuman thing, but I think before we had the transhuman movement, the immortalist society and all that, we have Egypt, we have Sumer, we have cuneiform.
Right. The life cycles seem to have been quite a bit longer, according to the ancient texts. And any ancient text you look at, humanity lived a lot longer. That would be bizarre. I don't know. See, like, I've always wondered, would I even want to live? I suppose it depends on how you feel, huh? But if you got to work every single day, if you live on a prison planet, who wants to live 500 years and have to slave away at McDonald's for the rest of the time?
But the opposite of that is that we get wiped. And you know this.
What do you mean?
We get wiped. So, I mean, I feel like we do, at least the idea that I feel within me that resonates the most is we don't die and we get somehow recycled or wiped. So whether we're in the physical, on the Catherine wheel here physically, we are definitely spiritually somehow bound as enslaved, but being wiped.
I believe we come into the 3D to have experience that then alters our frequency so that when we return to the all, we bring back all that frequency. It's God learning about himself in a way. So I've felt like I could live on numerous planets. I've always had a connection to Pleiades, even before I knew of Palladians and anybody else having connections to Pleiades. I've always looked up at the Seven Sisters and longed for home. I don't know why, but I kind of feel like that movie, The Beautiful Green, where they asked, who wants to go to Earth, and everybody put their head down, and then one foolish person was like, yeah, I want to go. And I think I was that foolish person, but in that way, like you, I've come here for the experience. So there's no good and bad, really. It's more just experience. It doesn't matter where I'm what I'm doing or where I'm at. There's no victim mentality involved because it's all experience.
Absolutely. I was 100% with you on that. There's uh, the good bad thing is makes me laugh. It's so funny that, I mean, that's all perspective and where you are as opposed, with what's happening to you, and that the cliches, the spider and the fly. I mean, come on. Uh yeah, that this is intriguing. And then so I guess before we take questions, I also am curious about where, and we've been dancing this already, and these last couple ponders have played with it, but the idea of death, and that is a state, that is a state, a field as well. What do you think that is, and how does it play into all of this?
I'm just suddenly remembering yesterday I had some strange old lady walk into my house. She thought she was home. She walked in, started grabbing pillows, and
Oh,
never
wow.
seen this lady, just all of a sudden the door opens, door closes. I don't know what, and finally go up to look to see what's going on. And there's this lady walking around my house completely lost. She had no idea. No one, it took hours for the police to figure out who she was and where she was supposed to be. Um, yeah, and then I just took care of my mom as she was dying, and uh, she completely forgot who I was and didn't know, and would tell me, how great her daughter was and how I needed to meet her and stuff. And she thought I was a hospice worker, and eventually was speaking German because that's my mom's from Germany. Um, so that kind of a little confusing, but I played the role for a long time with her, well, for a few weeks before she died, as a hospice worker. I didn't want to confuse her and make her think that uh you like, hey, I'm your son. um but i I yeah, I wouldn't want to be here that much longer. I feel like the elite are seeking this transhumanist agenda because their souls are burnt and they have nothing to go to when they're done. Like, they're just burnt. They're purgatory or whatever. And so they're seeking to extend their lives as long as possible so they don't have to pay the piper. Um, but for me, I'm just ready to go to the next experience and the next thing. And like I said, I always wanted to be a spaceman. That was my childhood. I just want to keep going. Let's send me to the next one. I'm ready. This one was a wild ride. I couldn't have asked for a more wild ride than planet Earth, that's for sure. And I have loved every minute of it. Now, I'll throw out one more thing that's just kind of bizarre about my life is it followed the tarot. So as I started to travel, I was making juggling sticks. I saw a set at a friend's house and said, I can make those. He's like, really? And he bought me all the stuff to make them. And suddenly I was selling juggling sticks faster than I could make them, from this guy's bedroom. And so I decided, you know what? I could take these anywhere and just wander the earth. So let me just make up a bunch of juggling sticks and jump in a van and go somewhere. I had no idea where I was going. And as soon as I went to jump in the van, this little black and white spotted dog starts pawing at my ankle. Exact tarot card of the fool, the beginning, the story, the zero, the everything. As he is about to leap off a cliff, is he going to fall or fly? Is the dog joining him or warning him? And that very dog, the very, very dog from the White Raider, Rider tarot deck was pawing at my ankle and decided to come with me. He followed me for years. I never leashed him. I never the people, he was waiting at my friend's door for 3 days. When I showed up to say goodbye, they were like, God, that dog's still sitting here. And then the dog just attached itself to me and never left my side for another 4 years, till I landed in, or maybe even 5 years, I don't know, but I landed in Lawrence, Kansas, which is the exact dead center of the United States. It's the first free state, where freedom comes from, slavery and all of that. Anyway, and I inherited that magician's library. Actually, he just left it in my van and left. And so I had the entire Crowley and works of the Golden Dawn and all of the magic texts to understand what the occult really was, what magic actually is, And so that's the next card, the magician. And so suddenly the dog vanished, right? So now I was on to the magician, and Yin just vanished. It was very, very, very sad. And that morning when he was gone, all the dogs in the neighborhood came and climbed into my couch with me and just consoled me. It was amazing. It was bizarre. But I've had like that sort of connection with animals all the time. Like I lived at this house with for 9/11. I had like 4 cats, an iguana, a cockatiel, 2 or 3 dogs, and just whole horde of animals sleeping on top of me. They never left me. The cockatiel would not leave my head. It didn't have clipped wings. No matter how much I threw that thing away, it just kept right back on my head. I'd forget the damn thing was there. I'd walk around, go outside and stuff, and the iguana would warm itself on me, and I'd wake up with the iguana warming on me, cats and dogs all in between my legs, while the cockatiel's cleaning my eyelashes with its beak. I'm like, whoa, what a way to wake up. But when I walked out of that house and went back on the road, all the animals followed me, and a lot of them died. I hate to say it, but the iguana has left, the bird flew away, everything tried to find me. The cats used to herd behind me. I've never had cats like, an entire troop of them would just follow me. So this was like, something that's always been me. I've always been connected. So eventually I moved on to the goddess with the whole Columbia story and discovering the fish people. And that was the next tarot. So I just kept kind of moving through the tarot cards without meaning to, and without, with the universe just providing everything. So that was kind of bizarre.
You're definitely a beautiful person, Freeman. Definitely. And I can see that. And the animals never let us down with those markers. You can always tell when the animals love someone or follow. And this includes the bees and the insect world as well.
I had a hummingbird eye me yesterday. It hovered right there at my face level and just stared me down. And it, not in a bad way. I was just like, oh my God, I'm like eye to eye with this hummingbird right now. And it just stood there, just, flapping. It was
They're
crazy.
Amazing. Well, you had that dream early on where you were flying, where you did the hummingbird movement.
Yeah, we got some stuff in common.
I'm wondering if Jerry's got I'm not in there in the chat. So. Oh, okay, cool.
I wanted to share something with you guys first, though.
Lay it on us, Jer.
I love it.
All right.
Oh, that's awesome.
I made that after he was talking about. All right, anyway. I got some questions here. So, someone wanted to know, did you know that Kate Bush uses fish people for her personal record label, and if it means anything to you?
Wait, say that again?
Kate Bush, the singer,
okay,
uses fish people for her personal record label.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about Kate Bush. So.
I actually did not know that. Did that come from a cult fan?
Of course.
Oh, Nathan Lee. Yay. I didn't know that, and I love Kate Bush.
I hate Kate Bush.
Oh my God, she's been the love of my life since she was out.
It's like her voice is like nails on a chalkboard to me.
Oh, she's etheric. Anyway.
Okay. Anyway, next question.
My favorite is...
Go ahead.
Devin Townsend Project, their album Transcendence.
Not
I
familiar with
highly
that.
recommend that.
All right,
Oh, I'm writing it
I'll link it
down.
in the show notes.
All right.
So-
I'm terrible with names, so I may already know it.
I'll get it.
No, nobody knows Devin Townsend.
Okay.
And as soon as they made that album, the band broke up. Like they made
Okay.
the best. It's a heavy metal album, but it's beautiful.
Oh, I'll check it
Called
out though.
Transcendence.
It's in the show notes already. All
Nice.
right. Let's see. Next question. Regarding the Dogons, what do you know or think about the idea of the Nomo or the Pneumo beings?
Well, that's the fish beings, the repulsive abominations
Mm-hmm.
that would slither up, and it just goes back to H.P. Lovecraft again. And I can't quite sort that out because, the darker side of H.P. Lovecraft versus the brighter side of helpful alien fish beings.
Yeah.
But they're definitely this whole thing, the Cthulhu mythos. It ties into the dark magic.
There is darkness there.
Mm-hmm.
Fits everything so well. Like Dagon, if you've ever
Yep.
seen the movie Dagon.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I had that in the original Columbia episode, but they wouldn't allow me to put that on Google and then later YouTube.
Bastards.
So no one has ever seen the original version of Columbia, which I also was on mushrooms at that time.
You should put it on BitChute.
I'd have to try and find it again. People don't use the old stuff enough to make it worthwhile, but maybe I could throw it up on my Vimeo channel or something.
There you go. And was it you that was talking? This is a side question for me. Was it you who brought up the what was it? The oil platform in the Gulf that went down?
Yeah.
Was some kind of ritual to Cthulhu? Was that you that said that?
Yeah. It's right there in the works of the Church of Satan. If you read the rituals of the Church of Satan, they say to call Cthulhu, you need an oil rig, and if you have an oil spill, it's even better, or an oil eruption.
Deepwater Horizon. That was it.
Deepwater Horizon, yeah. So it actually is outlined in the rituals of the Church of Satan.
Yeah, interesting. All right, last question was, what do you think about archons? Real, fake?
I'm okay with the idea. Gnosticism, I kind of get it, and I could see Yahweh as the crazy god. It's not too hard for me to flip that script. But it definitely seems that the elite have contact with the Nine or whatever, Lam, and so I do believe that ritual magic is, like, especially the Ordo Templi Orientis, the same group of Crowley and who most of Hollywood belonged to. That's the true sex magic, if people don't know. And then they have the Typhon, right? The Typhonian order.
Wasn't that kind of came after Crowley, though? Didn't kind of?
It did, yeah. It was Kenneth Grant.
Kenneth Grant did it. There's this dude out there whose name is Tim Refat. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
He talks about, it's complicated, and I don't want to get into it right now, but it's really interesting shit about how the Kenneth Grant version of the Tree of Life is in reverse. So people are doing it wrong, but all that Typhonian stuff is, basically demonic. But
the Leviathan, Typhon.
The fact that it's in reverse in the book of his, which outlines all that, the Kabbalah stuff, makes people do it wrong and they get trapped in it, like their energy gets trapped in it.
Right.
His stuff's real interesting. I don't know if it's true. It's interesting to hear, though. Anyway.
Oh, that's right. And then Crowley didn't close up any of that. And they were about to turn his Loch Ness castle into a sex retreat.
I heard
and
that.
It burnt to the ground.
Hold on, I have one more question. I missed it apparently. Yeah, and Jack Parsons too. They did their little Babylon working. That was probably still left open.
Yeah, like all of that stuff happened around where they caught Ghislaine Maxwell.
In the desert?
No, in New Hampshire.
Oh,
Like Cthulhu mythos, the Betty and Barney
oh
Hill,
yeah.
Montauk, they're all right there. Where Exeter, all
Have you
kinds of UFO connections to where she was picked up.
have you seen Chris Knowles' stuff on that? He's mapped it out.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Here's the other questions from Keats. What do we do to transcend? Pointing out the wound is one thing, ailing it is very much everything else.
Yeah, the world needs a really big hug.
Yeah.
Everybody would just cry really hard.
Work on your shadow.
You know, the truth is that there is this miraculous life that we could all live. I had the great pleasure of experiencing it by just being a fool and going out into the world and finding out that something loves me and it makes sure that the universe opens everything for me. And once you realize that, then life takes on a whole new purpose. But obviously, everything that's going on is to combat that. So the Celestine prophecies, you know, he took what he was learning in the academia and wrote it in story form. And the whole ideas of synchronicity and the bonding of energies and all of that, and our sucking of one each other's souls, all of that is exactly what my life was. And so I was so happy when the Celestine prophecies came out, because I finally had a way to explain to people what I was doing. And so he does a great story in that, where the character is literally running from HAARP, and I don't even think he knew of HAARP when he wrote it, but everything he describes coming from China and all of this is exactly right. So everything that we see going on with social distancing, distance learning, masks, and everything is the perfect way to stop the synchronistic realms, you know?
I can't unmute. That makes sense. Right. Well, that's all the questions I have. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been unbelievably awesome.
Yeah, it was a nice change to talk about Dreamtime
and not everything else.
Yeah. Because I mean, I really do think there is a blossoming of humanity. I really can't help that, because I've seen so much good in all my travels, and I've seen so much great people. And obviously what they're doing right now is because they just care too much. As I watched the battles in Los Angeles just the other weekend, they were busy fighting over who cared for life more. You know, no, you you know, Planned Parenthood, no, Black Lives Matter, Planned Parenthood, you know, and they were fighting over who cares more. And you know, that's unfortunate, but it's a good sign. And I really, really, really do have belief that humanity will use this as the massive turning point. It's just too much. I can't see us going into the dystopia. I can't. My brain doesn't accept it. It just doesn't believe it possible for us to slip that hard.
Well, one of the things I'm taking away from this wonderful chat with you, Freeman, is your statement earlier that something loves me. And I think that is such as a mantra. That is because I feel the same way. There's no way I've gotten through everything crazy that I've gone through with the 3 seconds from death here and there. And without that thought that something does love me. And I'm kind of like the parentless child, and I didn't really get that good experience. So it and I've come to that. Those are powerful words, and it doesn't have to be something out there loves you. There is that energy in this experience, and to acknowledge it is quite a powerful act of self-worth and self-magic. So yeah, this has been wonderful. Thank you for sharing your time and wonderful stories with us.
Thank you guys. This was a good time.
Right. And when you're ready to get back to the woo, we'll have you on the obelisk sometime.
Yes.
All right, I'm always ready for the woo. You know,
We're swimming in the woo.
Right. So thank you everyone for listening. We really appreciate it. Be sure to tune in next week. We'll have an obelisk coming up with our guest Max Egan. Should be pretty interesting. Hear all about what's that?
And also, how can people
COVID folks
get?
I lived with him for a little while.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew you and Max were close. How can people that may not, this may sound strange, may not know who you are, how do they get a hold of you?
Oh, you know who doesn't know who I am is people in the research field. Freemantv.com is the website, and Freeman TV on everything. Freeman Fly. Just Google Freeman Fly, and you'll find everything that I'm on. But of course, I'm banned from Facebook. I'm banned from Reddit. I'm banned from, I've stopped posting to YouTube. So you're only going to find me on Twitter, on my website, and on YouTube. But if you go to my YouTube, use the playlists, because I'm not allowed to upload my own videos. Never have been. I'm one of the original, Googlers. Back in the day, I was, millions and millions of views on Google. But so when I was put in a special platform when I got to YouTube, because they already knew who I was. But so anyway, I can't use the playlist, or because there's a lot of videos that come from other people's channels that are my work that I can't put on my own channel. And also run the videos backwards. If you go to the video section, run them from oldest to newest, because that's where it all is. It all starts there, and then you're up to now, but you can't start now, and you got to go all the way back. So freemantv.com is the website to go check it out, and just anything Freeman TV or Freeman Fly, that's me.
And all these links are in the description if you didn't remember all that stuff. So, and they'll be in the show notes too, so anyone can find them. Right. Well, thanks again. It's been a great talk. Oh, someone wanted to know what episode of Dan Fogler's 4D experience you were on. Could you tweet it?
It's in my Twitter feed, but it was back when that first comment was coming in, back when General O'Shaughnessy was just getting into Cheyenne Mountain. So you'd have to scroll down a bit, because I don't know.
Okay. It's in his Twitter feed. You can search it on Twitter. So anyway, thank you so much again. Thanks, Nish. It was a great show. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week.